Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Way is in Training. This is a podcast exploring how warriors should train and fight, as well as how they should live. We will talk about technique, but we'll also dive deep into fitness, mindset, and strategy. We will explore leadership and philosophy as well. So whether you are a young soldier, a veteran police officer, a responsible armed citizen, or simply someone looking for an authentic life, let's examine how the lessons of combat and preparation for it can help us fulfill our potential. Let's explore the way together and learn how the discipline of training can show us our true selves amidst the chaos of life. Hey everybody, today I've got with me my good friend, Scott Jedlinski. I first trained with Scott. How long ago did I first train with you?
2018.
Yeah, so it's been a minute. Scott is, if you haven't heard of him, which means you're either not into shooting or you've been living under a rock for the last 5-6 years, is the red dot guru. He is the guy that has helped everybody make the transition to optics on their pistols. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself, Scott, and we'll get started.
So Scott Jedlinski, I run Modern Samurai Project with my fiance, Heather. I now live in Matthews, North Carolina, which is the southeast section of Charlotte. The class is Modern Samurai Project. We mainly specialize in red dot pistols and the AIWB position. Teach about 100 classes a year, and then I got another 6 staff guys, and I think they're going to do another 60 by the end of the year. We teach everybody from open enrollment, to law enforcement. Some mill guys come to the class, but really haven't done like a mill contract class or anything like that. So mainly it's civilians and law enforcement. So, yeah.
Right. What's your training background? Like, how did you get to this destination?
So I've been a lifelong martial artist, my entire life. Again, like I always say, starting off with Taekwondo, you have to, otherwise you get disowned in a Korean household. Then, some karate, a lot of Muay Thai, wrestling, and then since 1996, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. How I really got into shooting is, again, I've always owned a gun. But when I used to live up in Metro DC, Northern Virginia area, when you train BJJ up there, it's impossible to train and there not be like, 3/4 of the class be face shooters, man, whether it be, local, state, or federal law enforcement. I had a buddy, Al. He was mobile security division for the State Department, kept on getting deployed. So he was like a 3-year white belt, helped him out, and then I think got his blue belt 3 months after. Said, "Hey, bro, I need to pay you back." He's like, "Do you shoot?" I go, "I own a gun." He goes, "Well, let me show you how to shoot." Right. And by his own admission, back it wasn't good, but he introduced me to it. Right, it was isosceles, bent over, arms locked out, shoulders and ears, 100 combat accuracy type stuff. Right, but it did introduce me to Silver Eagle, which was 5 minutes from my house, so I could go shoot whenever I wanted to, and just started taking a lot more classes, started competing. And then, the guys over at primary and secondary, Matt Landfair, started saying, "Hey, man, you need to teach, you need to teach, you need to teach." And I'm like, "Nah, you fucking instructors can't agree on anything. Why would I want to be a part of that?" Right. But then, I just said, "All right, let's give it a whirl." And then in June of 2017, a 20-person class sold out in an hour, and it had a 20-person wait list for the next class. So then I just started doing it, went full time in 2020, just in time for COVID. Right. But we powered through that, and the rest is history. Yep. So here I am.
All right. And so your master class in USPSA, right?
Yeah, made master class in 2018. Unfortunately, because of my schedule, have not been able to compete as much as I wanted to, or building the business and stuff like that. Starting to get back to it, right? Because I love to compete. Probably shot 3 or 4 matches this year. Some good, some shit. Been working hard on getting back to that though, because competition is where you keep your edge. If you're not riding that juice and that lightning, if you're not out there with the young kids who are discovering new stuff and new movement and new progressions all the time, you're going to be behind the power curve, right? And that power curve is super interesting because it creeps up on you, man. So.
So what does your training look like? And has it changed over time? And specifically for firearms right now, how has your training progressed, and what does your personal training look like? How do you develop your skills and get through?
Yeah, so I've gone through some obviously personal changes in the past couple of years, right? I recently got divorced and met the love of my life, Heather. And in that new home structure, I'm actually encouraged to go out and train. It's not you've been on the road for a month, having fun, blah, 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 do housework now. You know what I mean? It's, there's a jiu-jitsu class. I looked at a jiu-jitsu class at 9, or, let's go train and let's go work on your splits or something like that. Heather is very in tune through our conversations on the stuff that I work on. And it's always good to have that, man, when I get a second, I really want to work on this. And then you get home after being on the road for 2 to 3 weeks, and you're just tired. And it's good to have that little nudge there, and someone who wants to come out there with you and hold that shot timer and give you insight of what they're seeing and matching it up to video and stuff like that. So what's my training look like? So in the past couple of years, right, I've lost, 330 maybe 2 years ago. Now I'm down to 263 as of this morning, right? I got my other knee taken care of. So pretty much everything I've been doing lately is movement. But really the progression over the past couple of years has been this. Number one, our good friend Donovan Moore and other people that we know, right? He was always saying, dude, just try this escalator draw. And I'm like, yep, I can do it. Here you go. There it is. He's like, well, why don't you do it? Because nobody can beat me. Why am I going to, with my draw, yep, I drop from 12. And by the way, internet, the drop from 12 is not the muzzle at the end. The drop from 12 is where your dot comes from all the time, right? You can fight me on that all day long. Don't care if you drop from 12 or lift from 6. The dot always drops from 12 because your ground has a grip angle. Whatever. I'm sure somebody will use that as a meme later on. But anyway, but that was the thing, is why do I need to learn your escalator when no one can beat my draw right now? I'm doing 80.85 draws, dropping from 12. Why do I learn that? Then people started beating me, right? And then, that whole thing of for years and years and years, this Instagram guy would come to my class, or, this high level competitive shooter would come to my class. And oh, they're good, but nobody was, going, oh my God, what is this guy doing? And then I started training people and showing them my methodology of how to do stuff. And they started getting much, much better on their draws, right? And then they're making their draws, doing an escalator type of draw. And I'm not going to say it's faster. I'm going to say it's easy to be aligned in the center with an escalator, right? I think it takes less effort, but you need to learn how to do both, right? Anyway, moving on from that. So, getting the escalator, which now when I draw, I always go from an escalator, right? Then the next thing was splits, right? I mean, you remember back in the day, I used to kind of, I'm not going to say rail against jailbait splits, but I would ask you, hey man, that's great. You can do a 14, but you never hit the A zone and your draw sucks. So I think you got your priorities screwed up. First the draw, then transitions, then splits. Then when you get it, then do splits. But then people started getting the draw, then in transitions, and then they got in splits, and they started beating me across the board. I mean, Donovan went from, hey, Scott, I shot all alphas in your first class and didn't win, and that guy shot 3 Charlies. What the hell? To doing 11 splits on demand where he's at right now. You know what I mean? And even if, I said to myself, even if I don't think for most practical application, a jailbait split, a 16, 15, 14, 13 would apply to any practical application, right? You don't need a 14 split to win a match. You don't need a 14 split for work or for self-defense. But I want to understand, how somebody who puts their pants on the same as me can do something I can't do. So I went down that rabbit hole.
Well, and here's my thought on that, right? Because I've always had, like my splits have always been like 17 to 20, like they haven't been super fast.
Mm-hmm.
And in just the last year, I've started to get to where I'm occasionally throwing 11s, and I can, in practice at least, I can push it down to like 15, 16 pretty regularly. And I had to work hard to get there, but I didn't do it because I thought that there was value for the match or the gunfight in those splits.
Yeah.
But I knew that being able to do those splits was a symptom of relaxed recoil control without being overly tense.
Yes, 100%.
And that was why I cared about it. I didn't care about it for the splits themselves. I cared about it because, we've known each other a long time. My tension has always been my demon, right? That's the devil sitting on my shoulder when I shoot that I have to shoo off, right?
Yeah.
So anything that helps me learn to relax behind the gun and still have good recoil mitigation, like I want that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was an interesting thing. Like the escalator, I got that. I got that pretty quick. It's just a matter of when you level out your gun, right? A couple nuances here and there, but for the most part, splits, because we're talking about hundredths of a second, that was about a year, if not more so, journey. And I talk to everybody. That's my thing, is like, everybody thinks I'm kind of a cocky guy, and I am. I'm confident, right? But I'll ask anybody. I don't give a shit if you're a multi-time national champion, area champion, or a scrub D-class shooter. If you can do something that I can't, I'm going to ask you how to do it. Then if you can't tell me how you do it, then I move on, because it doesn't matter if you can do it. If you can't tell me, if you can't explain to me, right? You're a performer as opposed to a craftsman, right? So I talked to everybody. So I called everybody, right? First, obviously, starting off with Donovan, who was probably he and AJ Zito probably had the biggest impact on me as far as my progression, as far as splits goes. And it's interesting, they do it completely different, right? As far as trigger manipulation, Donovan doesn't leave the shoe. AJ leaves the shoe all the time, but they can both do 12 and 13s on demand, right? So started going down the rabbit trail, asking different people, Billy Barton, Brendan Bernecki, Hunter Constantine, just call them friends up and ask them how they do it. Nobody agrees on anything except for two things. Like you said, you need to relax your hand enough to free up the dexterity of your trigger finger. But that's not the same for everybody. Okay. No. So for Billy, it's literally holding on to that thing that if you take off your support hand, that gun will shake around in your hand, right? I liken to when we were all kind of fruity and decided to take a golf lesson, right? And that instructor said, hold on to the club as if it was a ton of bird and you don't want to crush it, right? That's how he holds on to the gun, okay? Donovan says, he's got a firm handshake grip, right? Hunter Constantine is 100, right? So I think the amount of tension in your hand where you can separate your trigger finger from the rest of this varies for everybody. I'm somewhere in the Billy Barton of completely let this go, and Donovan.
Like Angela, my wife, who's a good, Angela, she's a good shooter. She's got that happy. Like fast splits for her are no big deal. She never had to work on it.
Yeah.
So some people can do it with a relatively, for their grip strength, a higher level of tension, because that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And other people like me with my Sasquatch hands, right? I need to relax significantly more, feel like, subjectively, feel like I'm relaxed significantly more.
Yep. And those people have like guys like Hunter Constantine, or even Rob Latham. Rob doesn't do fast splits though, but he always said 100 with 100. Those people have an advantage because they don't need to switch from a violent, draw snatch, right? And then relaxing this and then switching over. They don't need to do that. Man, I had a buddy, Sonny Kuo. Yeah, Sonny Kuo. Dude couldn't hit the broadside of the barn, but old boy could do 11 splits from the mid, right? So he was like, I just need to slow down and get my hits. I was like, don't ever slow down. Just see your sights. Just see your sights, bro. Right? He's like, oh, okay, that's a thing.
Yeah, those little things on top of the gun come in handy sometimes.
Sometimes, right? So there's that. I'm getting that. I mean, I'm still not consistently. I still need to work on my second shot after my draw, but that's getting better. Like if I can do like a bill or the 3-2, and I can have an 18 on the second shot after the draw, and then it starts decreasing down. Like I think this last time I did in the class on the 3-2, I think I did like a 85 draw and then an 18, 17, 16, 15, 14. It just kept on getting better and better. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy.
And that's fascinating to me because now that my splits have gotten faster, that's what my bill drills look like when I have good splits. It's like I start out first one like my old splits were. And then each one is progressively faster. I'd rather see it have even timing, but I'm not there yet.
So working on it so if anyone's taking my class, I'd be like when we marry, right? What are you aiming for? Middle of index on your support hand, on your middle finger, middle knuckle on your middle, right? And then as we index that has been as soon as that touches, switch to the support hand. The problem is we're going so quickly, it's hard to make that switch. And you got to trust the structure of your grip. Right, which is a big thing as well. But it's been working out. And then the final thing is just movement, losing that weight, getting my legs stronger, going out and working on movement again with all my friends. Donovan, AJ Zito, Gil Narvaez, and then recently spent all day working with Jake Labhart and Aaron Duggar out at In Extremis Performance in the Dallas area. And that was a great time, man. They had me sprinting 25 yards at the end, and I learned a lot.
I like those guys a lot. I like the stuff they teach.
Yeah, zero ego, tons of educational background, but very open-minded on things and how to apply different things in different contexts. Just great guys all the way. They deserve all the success they're having.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. Those guys they're doing God's work for sure.
Yep.
And I really dig their T drill a lot.
Yeah, I was so exhausted. We were going to do it, but I was so exhausted at the end of the day. I mean, we did like 7 hours straight of work, and he's like, "You want to do the T drill?" I'm like, "Bro, I'm stuck. Let me take this, and next time I see it, we'll work it out." So.
Now, after your surgeries, did you find, like, I kind of found after I got my hips done that I was physically capable of the speed and agility I had before, but my mind was still being protective. You know what I'm saying? Like it was still guarding myself. Have you had to work on it all since your surgeries?
Yeah. So, my knees went bad on May 28th of 1998. And specific because I went down to Sunset Court in Vegas, played 10 straight pickup games. I think we played to 11, right? No twos, no threes, all one, right? And we ran 10 games straight, and my ACL gave way. And I didn't realize my ACL gave way, and I didn't stop playing basketball, and I didn't stop doing jujitsu and all this other stuff. And that's how my knees went bad. So that's how long my knees have been bad, right? Finally getting them redone. One knee is actually, most people don't know this, but both my knees are replacements, right? I got one done in 13 and one done in 22. But my whole body is programmed to protect my knees.
Yeah, to compensate.
Yep. Yeah. And, they just, when you start that meniscus slide, nothing's going to stop it, especially with a lot of heavy use. So the things that I learned in their class is that I have a horrible heel collapse problem when I run. For example, not when you're stopping, but when you're running, most people run on the balls of their feet, right? Maybe the heel comes down a little bit, but it's not that, right? And looking at these videos of me and, other guys competing and stuff like that, like when I run, it's literally like this. When I was sprinting, it was like, you could hear my heel popping. So the realization that I made with those guys was, well, if everyone else is running on the balls of their feet, they're doing one thing, right? I'm doing three things. right? I'm doing 3 things. So it doesn't matter. And it always used to drive me nuts. Like, man, I am moving. I'm putting in all this energy and all this power and everything. And yet people are still beating me in time, right? I just couldn't get it. Well, there you go, man. If you're doing one thing every time you take a step and I'm doing 3 things, I'm going, you're going ball, ball, ball of your feet. I'm going ball, heel, ball. It doesn't matter how fast I move. I'm doing 3 things and you're doing 1 thing. So we've been working a lot on that. And then just taught a class at Alpha Range in McHenry the day before. Donovan and I shot for 4 hours, really working into that stuff. And my speed significantly got better with and the dot sunlight. When you heel strike, the dot's this as opposed to gliding in or gliding through stuff. And it's much better. So I'm excited. We're going to be working on this a little bit longer. I got some time. I think limited optics appeals to me because it looks like the guns that I carry. You know what I mean? So we're going to be doing that, and I'm excited. I'm going to enjoy it. So,
what's your training program look like? The movement you doing like plyos and sprint work and agility?
Yeah. So there's about a 10 to 15 minute warm up, right? So the guys at Extremist made a whole program for me, right? And they put it into the Train Heroic app, right? So it's got different levels and stuff, right? They got 5 days. I can't do 5 days right now. I'm doing one every other day just because of my training, my travel schedule and all that other stuff. And I'm doing it at lunch on whatever range that I'm at, right? But, you're starting out with basic stuff, right? You're talking about depth drops, you're talking about high knees, karaoke, it's just to get warm and things of that nature. And then a lot of short distance sprinting and stopping, right? And getting into place and chopping into place and stopping and all that other good stuff, right? Occasionally, I'm working when I have access to it, right? So some sled work, right? Sled work's absolutely fantastic. They completely changed the way I thought about sleds. Instead of pushing, you are pushing, but the energy is not coming from I'm probably not going to explain this one, but more of that as you push down into the ground with your ball of your feet, you're pushing away the earth like you are in a deadlift instead of just push and push, and mimicking more energy from your feet.
Mimicking that good sprint angle with the legs too.
Exactly. Doing that. A lot of pogos. 2-leg pogos, 1-leg pogos, right? And I'm like, literally, people see me walking around. It's like, why are you walking like that? Right? You got to poop or something? I was like, nah, man, I'm just walking around on the balls of my feet, right? So they're telling my heels it's okay. I don't need their services right now. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. It's going to be interesting. So by the time we go full blown, I'll be in senior division because I'll be 55. Right. So we'll have some.
Turning 55 was the best thing that ever happened to my major match placement.
There you go, buddy. There you go. And all the younger kids are like, fuck off, old man, blah, blah, blah. It's like, whatever, bro. Whatever. It's all right.
All right. Like, how about your routine for dry fire? What do you do for dry
fire? So on dry fire, my dry fire is more experimental than anything else, right? Because I shoot so much in classes and things of that nature, where I'll experiment with different things. Everything I do in dry fire, it's to very small targets, right? Like, everyone knows about my MSP targets. Well, I have one that's, half size, a third size, and a 16th size, just doing transitions and stuff like that. Because I find I can't get the movement that I do in dry fire with my limited resources and just like this, little office workshop that I have isn't giving what I want to do. You know what I mean? So if I'm going to do stuff, I'm going to do stuff on the range. But here, it's just simply a matter of weird positions, weird leans, stuff like that from a draw in transitions to very, very, very tiny objects and incorporating appropriate trigger manipulation to it, right? understanding what I can get away with visually, slapping the trigger, what I need to do a controlled slap on, and what I need to do a full prep on. So, to steal terms from JJ and Don. So,
well, that fascinates me because I just realized that I now teach the same thing with different words.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the body works the way the body works.
Yep. I teach slap, and I call it a roll and break, and I call it a prep and press.
Yep.
And it sounds like the exact same things.
Yeah. So the thing that I found that, again, we take things from each other and then we kind of look at things a little bit differently, but it's the same thing, right? So the biggest epiphany that I had in going through Donovan's trigger manipulation package, which I take full credit for, by the way, in helping him develop that. Not because I helped him develop it, but because, so I go, hey dude, how do you do these goddamn splits, man? How do you racking off 11s and 12s on demand and stuff like that? And his answer to me was like, bro, I was in the Navy. We shot shitty bread in 92s. And that trigger just made me stronger and stuff like that. I'm like, good try. But when you were shooting Glocks in my class, you weren't doing that shit. So there had to be something. I go, so your answer is unsatisfactory, my friend. Go back to the drawing board and get back to me. So he did. And now I think he has one of the most comprehensive packages in his class for trigger manipulation, right? But he talks about control slapping and prep to the final wall. I think there is a thing for full slapping. The difference is I don't take my finger off the trigger anymore. I think that's the biggest difference. I think that's a big thing that people need to realize. You can fully slap the trigger without taking your finger off the trigger. You can if you want to. Don't get me wrong, right? You can if you want to. AJ takes his finger completely off the trigger. I've just found with me that if I don't lose contact with the trigger, that my accuracy at speed and on difficult targets goes through the roof. So,
and I think a lot of that too, like, I think the principles are universal, right? Like the principles don't change, but everybody's got a little bit of a different physiology and psychology. So the way you embody those principles is going to change from shooter to shooter, from person to person. Like martial arts, anything else, you've got to adapt the principles to you, not the other way around.
Well, so that's the funny thing about that word principle, right? If the meme of the industry in 2023 was vision, right? I think the meme of 2024 is principles. All right, cool. Can you give me the definition of principle? Okay. A principle is supposed to be a truth that you can apply to practical application. That's a principle, right? For example, what's the principle of a good grip, right? It makes your gun return, your sights return reliably and predictably back to the point of aim. That's the principle of a good grip. How you apply a grip to make that happen is the technique. That's my own personal conviction, right? There are plenty of different techniques out there. There's Graffel's grip. There's my grip. There's your grip. There's Don's grip. They all work. There's some consistencies in there, right? Obviously, high, hand up on the beaver tail, no gaps in the upper region of your palm, yada yada, and your support hand doesn't move. But there's different techniques in how to accomplish that, right? Yep. The problem is I don't think people apply that same thing to every aspect, which is really what I've been thinking about lately, in that I think there's 4 stages to getting better. Okay. First one is philosophy, right? Why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? Right. For example, why do I carry a gun? Statistically, you don't need a gun, but it's not about statistics. It's not about probability. It's about stakes. Right. And your particular view of the world. Right. So that's the philosophy. I carry a gun to protect myself and my family because of the stakes. That's the philosophy. Right. The principle is, right, of the things I'm doing with this gun, right, what is the most efficient way to do it? And then I think technique is the application of the efficiency. And then you have to do reps. You have to, right? Because you have to rewrite of what you used to do, right, of what you want to do. right? An interesting thing, I was talking to a neurologist who came to my class, and he goes, yeah, it's procedural memory. It's not muscle memory. It's not myelination, right? Those are just tiny, muscle memory, there's no such thing. Myelination, tiny part of the entire process. But procedural memory of trying to rewrite an old habit with a new habit has to come through those steps. We have to mentally understand why we're doing something. We have to officially figure out how to do it. And then we got to do the reps to hone in the new way of doing things. I think people try and skip steps all the time, right?
Yeah. Or they think an academic understanding of their desired end state somehow magically get them there. Like they understand the end goal, so now they think they can do the end goal without putting in the work. You know what I mean? It's like they're like, I've read all this stuff on the internet. I've seen all this stuff on YouTube. I know how these people do this, so obviously I'm good, right? No, because you didn't do the work. You didn't do the reps.
Right. So it's not going to stick. It's not going to stick. On the other hand, can we also say there are people that don't care about philosophy, principle, and technique? They're just willing to put into the work, right?
Yeah.
You don't need that technique. You don't need that class. Just go dry fire in your basement for 6 months. Well, to that I say, we all know people have been shooting their entire lives and they still suck. Meanwhile, we all know people that have come to our class. They've taken what we've taught them, and then a year later, they're a master, or in some cases, a grandmaster, because they have more time than you and I do, right? So
you're blown away with some of the improvements. Sometimes people come back with.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. When you and I started shooting USPSA around the same time, right? 16, 17, 18, right? Yep. If you made, what was a good time to make even master class? Like from the time you first started shooting to the time you made master, what was the average in your circles?
Ooh, probably several years.
Yeah, or even a fast truck was 3 years. You made 3 years in master. Oh shit, right? Now kids are doing it in 6 years to a month.
Yeah,
right.
And I did do it in 3 months, but I think that was an outlier because of all the stuff I'd done.
Yeah.
But I paid the price for that because all those things I'd done got me that far and got me no further. And I had to redo everything.
Sure. No, I get that.
You know what I mean?
But there were kids out there making GM in a year. You're telling me they just worked, if it all comes from just rep and index and stuff like that, you're telling me they worked 30 times harder than the guy who made GM in 5 years? No, he's not. He just had a better technique base.
And I think a lot of it is understanding how to practice.
Sure.
It's not find those reps. The reps have to be deliberate. You got to have understanding of what's going right, what's going wrong, you're trying to accomplish. That's got to be there, or you're just throwing a gun around.
I agree. And then you have to understand how to analyze and calibrate the data, right? And that's why I think, for anybody out there looking for a good dry fire program to start off with, and you're just looking at where to get started and stuff like that, I will always give credit to Steve Anderson's and his book, Refinement and Repetition. Again, people's like, oh, well, that's wrong and that's right. It's like, hey, man, sometimes, I'm not even saying that about it's good. It's a great plan. But sometimes you just need a plan. Go do it. Go do something. You know what I mean? And build upon that, right? And I think his book was instrumental, amongst some other things, but instrumental to me I think I made master in a year in 4 months or something like that, right? His book was because it told me the things that I need to practice on. It gave me direction. It showed me how to log it. It showed me how to judge progress. And, the tips that he gives in the book were absolutely fantastic. And I could make the training my own. So props to Steve. And Steve is seeing the benefits of that with his students. I mean, just
what I like
JB, you cannot deny it.
No, what I like about his program is and are there more sophisticated programs out there? Yes. Can they do you good? Maybe more good than his after a certain point? Absolutely. But what I think is so good about his program for beginners is that it's such a simple, you have like your daily dozen.
Yeah.
And if you do those on a consistent basis and you pay attention to what you should be doing, and you do it, like we said, like mindfully and deliberately, those will get you a long way, I think.
I agree. I would agree with that. But on the other hand, we say sophisticated thing. I think more sophisticated programs. I think we have to define that. Show me the shooter that's more sophisticated than Jay Beal and Joey Sutherland, who are disciples of Steve. The proof's in the pudding. The proof is in the pudding, bro. I'm just, it's just something to think about. Not saying the other programs aren't great. There's plenty of great programs. Mike Steaklander's program is great. Tim Herron's program is great.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, JJ's program is great, but sophistication is as sophistication does. And those two boys right now, Joey's been shooting for 3 years and he just won limited nationals, right? Jay Beal, right, has been shooting probably for 5 years out of nowhere, right? And amongst the Americans became second place at nationals, and has been placing top 10 for the last couple of nationals for about 3 years now, right? So,
they're both beasts without a doubt.
Unbelievable beasts, right? And they would both give credit back to Steve. So,
no, it's a good program. Absolutely.
Yep. Good on him, man. Good on him. So I should probably get back to doing Steve's book. I don't know. Where is it at? Oh, hold on. It's right there. I should probably start doing that shit again. Good times.
So what do you think? I'm going to segue a little bit here. How do you find your martial arts background helped you with your shooting? Like, what do you see with the parallels and how one kind of training influenced the other and informed the other and how it helps you out?
Well, so especially with jiu-jitsu, right? What's jiu-jitsu? It's the study of efficiency and leverage. What's shooting? The study of efficiency and leverage, right? What is wrestling? The study of efficiency and leverage. Even unfortunately, as much as I hate the game, what is golf? The efficiency, right? Efficiency and leverage. Tennis.
Well, you know what I tell? So in my class, right, when I do my intros, I always ask people to tell me something that they were good at, they worked hard to be good at, besides shooting, because it gives me a way to find coaching cues for them to relate things to something they already know.
Yeah.
Whenever somebody says golf, I give them something good after, but first I have to rail on them a little bit. I got to.
Yeah, of course you do.
So I look at them and go, you really should try competitive shooting because that's golf for heterosexual men. And then, of course, I always tell them that no, the mental aspect of golf is probably the closest to shooting of any other sport or game out there, most likely. Like the whole mental side of it, So, like, I give them something good after making fun of them, but that's always my standard joke.
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah. Sure.
And Lord knows I can't play golf.
Yeah.
My role on a golf course is to sit in the golf cart and smoke a cigar.
100%. 100%. That's why it's a pastime, not a sport. Any sport where you can eat and drink during the course of it is not a real sport. So
no, it's a game, but that's okay.
It's okay. That's okay.
Like I said, I can't. I'm like the world's worst golfer. Like the thing defies the laws of physics when I try to hit it with that club. It shouldn't be.
Well, yeah. And when I have an impact weapon, I want to do something else than hit a tiny little ball. Yeah. So that's basically what I've been doing right now, and it's been fun. It's been fun. So and we'll see what we can do. We'll see what we can do.
It's fun to kind of try to push things at our age. I think it's fun to see how far we can still get.
Yeah, and you have to accept. You do have to accept some things. I'm never going to be as fast as a 25-year-old. You know what I mean, or nothing, or anything like that. But it's fun trying, right? Because we don't have to win all the time. We just have to win once. That's like, bro, you know what I mean? So, but it's fun. But that's, the philosophy of it, me getting back to competition. Why am I getting back to competition? It's not to necessarily beat people. I mean, it is because that's part of the metric of running, but it's to keep that stress inoculation at its highest level, right? Instead of wanting to be afraid of the lightning or the juice, that nervousness you get there. You want to get back to really enjoying it, right? And number three, it's where the skills of shooting are pushed the most, right? Yeah. It is free of consequence, the regular safety stuff, but it's all about efficiency, all about efficiency.
It's right? The pressure cooker of technique.
Right. 100%. 100% it is, right? Yeah. So I was going to make a smart ass comment, but that's okay. That's okay. But it is.
Nothing's ever stopped you before.
I know, but I'm trying to be kind of gentler these days.
Yeah. All right, so segueing a little bit, brother. So I want to talk to you a bit about how you think being someone who's always been serious about training, because you always have been. Mm-hmm. How has that informed and improved the rest of your life, the rest of your existence? Like, how do you think that carries over? Because a lot of people, there's a lot of people who are going to pick these things up and work on stuff, whether it's BJJ or shooting or, some sort of fitness modality, or it could be pickleball for all I know. Like, something they're going to pick up as an athletic endeavor to kind of keep them young or keep them invested in something or find them something to work on being good at something, right? And one of my big beliefs is that has benefits far beyond the thing you're actually working on. Just the act of working hard to be good at something carries over the rest of your life. So what do you think?
It's about balance. See, that's a kind of a hard thing, right? So it's, for example, if you take it back to jiu-jitsu, right? It's like, I'm doing jiu-jitsu to protect myself and be healthy and be in shape. But then you roll for 20 years and you're broken. Your elbows are fucked up. Your wrists are fucked up. Your ears look like somebody's trying to pump, a BBL into them or whatever like that. So that's why I think the philosophy is like, why are you doing this? There has to be something, right, that's going to keep you pushing and driving and things of that nature, right? So how has training made me a better person? Taking my teaching, which has always been a passion of mine, to the next level, right? Understanding that different people react to different ways of saying things. So as an instructor, what I've been really working on is saying the same thing 10 different ways, 10 different times, so that I catch somebody based on their personality or whatever, so that they don't get lost. They don't get lost either, right? Success is great. I've been very successful. I don't care, like me or don't like me. You cannot argue that I've been very successful in the last 5-7 years, right? But that success can get to you.
I can say I knew you when.
Yeah, exactly, right? You were at the very first real class that I ever got hosted on, back in 17 or 18.
I didn't realize that was the first one you got hosted.
First real hosted class that I did not do myself or host myself. Yeah, that was the first real one.
Yep. Wow. I really can say I knew you when.
Yeah.
It was a good class too. Remember that horrible pimped out Glock I shot?
Dude, that was the stage of blood, because you kept on shooting and kept on ripping your hands apart. And I'm like, bro, please don't let me have like a hemorrhage loss in my first real fucking class, man. Damn.
Me being me, I just didn't care.
I know. Well, you were so frustrated at that stage. So, but that's good. That was still good though. Again, being successful, you have to understand why you're doing things to help people out, right? And if you lose sight of that, you start believing your own hype. You start thinking your way is the only way, and you start ignoring everybody else. Man, that shit's gonna catch you, and it's gonna catch you before you even know it. Again, people come to class, I'm like, whatever, bro. Nah, you're okay. Nah, whatever, bro. Then all of a sudden, bam, people that I trained started beating me, like started handing me my ass on stuff, or even better, like second generation people. I taught somebody and they taught somebody else, and that guy comes up and bam, he's freaking amazing. You know what I mean? You have to take all those. You have to take all those lessons. Try and swallow the ego and just keep on getting better, because that's why we all started this, right? For our reasons of why we want to train with a gun or train in martial arts or train anything else is to get better. And when you stop doing that, when you start thinking you got everything figured out, it's gonna smack you upside the head, right? And some of us, that's what we need. So I'm having a great time recalibrating things, learning new things, and integrating new things into the class. So yeah.
Yeah, and like for me at this point, because I'm the retired guy now. I've been retired for 5 years. Like I'm retired, right?
Yeah.
So, like, odds are I'll never be in a life or death confrontation again. Most likely, knock on wood. So it's not really.
You're not that far from Austin, bro.
I said odds are.
As the odds are. Okay.
I said odds are. I didn't say it couldn't happen. Right? But the point I'm making is, like, it's all about that for me now. Like, it's all about. I mean, it's still got practical application. Don't get me wrong. You know what I mean? Like, it still has to be real. But I just want to see how far I can take things and see how far I can kind of use this to polish myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, but I mean, part of it is just like, I think if you don't have, or here's what I'll give you, right? There's always that discussion on discipline versus motivation, right?
Yes.
And where discipline and everything and motivation is, waning or not going to be consistent. And I'm not going to disagree with that, right? But the problem is discipline without philosophy, without the reason of why you're doing something, also wanes. Yeah, exactly, right? So I think, yes, discipline is the foundation. So here's an analogy I meant. I was talking to, who was I talking to? I think AJ, right? And I said, here's the way I'm going to start thinking about it, right? Discipline is the engine, right? Motivation is the turbo or the nitrous or the supercharger, right? You might be great with your discipline all day long, but if you don't have some motivation driving you, right? If you don't have, some goal or hate running through your body.
No, you've got to have some, and the goals can be performance based. They can be more application based. You know what I mean? Like, you got to have something that's driving you to get better. There's got to be some sort of hunger.
Well, what was the best way? Like, for example, right? So your main martial arts background is karate, right?
Among other things, but yeah.
Among other things. Well, we just say karate, right? So I'm sure there's a point in your time where you thought you were a badass, you had this all figured out, and then you sparred somebody who fucking pushed your shit in.
Oh, yeah.
What'd you do? You trained harder on your decision, right? Yeah. So you had the discipline to get to where you were, but you didn't get to that next level until somebody drove some motivation on top of it,
One of the reasons why I still shoot matches.
Yeah.
It gives you that litmus test, that motivation, that motivating factor, right? So the goal is the self-improvement for me, but that doesn't mean that the vehicle for the motivation is some nebulous, I want to be better. You've got to have that vehicle. You've got to have that, I want to be able to do this, that makes, because you can have the discipline, and like, I get up every morning and drive fire, right? I do the ACE, the virtual reality thing.
Yep.
So I can have the discipline to get up every morning and do 2 hours of that. But without the motivation, the reps might be lackluster. I might not have my mind in it. It might just be marking time.
Right.
And you're not going to get the benefit that way. You've got to have that focus on what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. So I think it's a balance. I think it's a balance of all of that, right? And that seeking of that motivation, of seeking people that are better than you, having the humbleness, right? And the egolessness to be able to see where those improvements can come from, right? And that's hard. That's hard for a lot of people. I had one instructor talk to me before, right? Old school guy, I won't mention his name. He's like, "Why are you competing again, bro? All you're doing is opening yourself up for criticism." And I'm like, I don't care about that. I don't care about people criticizing me. I could be the greatest person on the face of the earth, right? And they'll still criticize me. I mean, look at Christian Saylor.
Yeah.
Right? Look at Christian Saylor, like literally one of the most winningest competitive shooters on the face of the earth. But what does everybody focus on? His rainbow transition and how it's silly. Well, bro, he beat you on everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how successful you are. People are always going to criticize you. You know what I mean?
I would almost argue that the more successful you are, the more likely people are to criticize you, whether they have cause or not.
Yeah. I'm the president of that fan club. And that's okay. That's okay. Because without that, everyone starts believing their own hype. You know what I mean? So,
yeah.
And that's motivation in and of itself. So.
No, absolutely. Because you got to prove them wrong.
Yep.
So, closing thoughts. What's one thing you'd want everybody watching or listening to this to know about how you train, how you teach, something about Modern Samurai Project or about Scott Jedlinski himself, the Jedi? One last thing, closing thoughts.
Well, so I'll give it in advice. Okay. You need to figure out who you are. Okay. And what do I mean by that? There are two types of athletes out there. And then, shooting is just an athletic endeavor.
Yep.
Don't get it twisted. It's an athletic endeavor, right?
Yes.
So the body works the way the body works, right? As far as athletics go and everything like that. So, and you have to figure out who you are. Are you an operator / performer, or are you a craftsman / instructor? Okay. What's the difference between those? Okay. And there's neither one's right, neither one's wrong. Okay. A operator performer doesn't care how anything works. They don't care about technique. They don't care about principle. They don't care about anything other than can they do the thing that they want to do, right? We've all had that, right? Like the first time you asked, maybe not, well, probably the first real grandmaster you knew was Les Martoni, and he's a pretty smart guy, right? But think about the other GMs that you know. When you ask them, hey man, how do you do that? What do they say?
Just do it.
Yeah, grip the gun hard and shoot alphas.
Shoot fast and don't miss.
Thanks, bro. That doesn't mean anything to me because I'm trying to do that now, right? But it's not like they're trying to be an ass. It's that they just don't know because what they have done is they've committed the time and thrown 1 million rounds downrange and shot 1 million matches, and then eventually their body figures it out. But then you ask them to teach something.
Yeah.
And they can't do it. They can't do it, right? Your best player is not always your best coach, right? A la Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan, right? Their coaching careers were horrible, okay? But arguably the best basketball player that's ever walked the face of the earth and top 10 with Magic Johnson, right? On the other hand, you have your craftsman and your instructor, okay? Your craftsman knows exactly how they do things, and they are often more your teacher. Now, a lot of them overlap, right? I'll tell you right now, the best example of a performer and a craftsman and instructor is JJ.
Yeah.
I think, except for maybe, there is not an active competitive instructor out there that hasn't taken a ton of information and insight and training from JJ. Hard stop.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even Eric, I took Eric Rafael's class in February, and a lot of people says, well, he teaches a lot of things different, blah, 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 but he'll tell you why he teaches them, and he does them on demand. And his performance, especially in his last Carry Ops Nationals, you cannot deny. At 50 years old, beating everybody by 10%. You can't deny that.
No, he's a GOAT.
He's a GOAT. He is, and an outstanding individual, right? Yes, he doesn't give out compliments and stuff like that, but very attentive, whether you're the best shooter in the class or the worst shooter in the a class, man. Absolutely, right? So those guys that are both, right? On the other hand, you're going to have some coaches, right? And again, we just gave him a compliment, but Steve Anderson doesn't shoot matches. But look at the product of what he's doing. Look the influence he's had with his book. So he's going to be your craftsman instructor. That's not necessarily these days your performer, right? Which one do you want to be? Do you want to be both? That's a lot of work. Do you want to be one or the other? Cool. But if you're the performer operator, right? I think having critiques on the craftsman instructor of just, you don't need to do that, just go dry fire for 6 months and build your index. I don't think you're doing a justice for the rest of the people out there. On the other hand, for your craftsman, instructor, if you can't shoot, nobody cares what comes out your mouth. So there's a balance there. So I would just think, define who you are, define your goals, and yeah. So that's about it. That's the last thing I'll leave people with.
That is a real. If people got nothing out of the rest of this podcast, you listen to that. That was a solid piece of advice. I like that.
Appreciate that, man.
Which means I'm going to steal it and use it in class, just so you know.
There you go. Yeah.
It won't be the first thing I stole from you.
There you go, buddy. There you go. Yeah.
So if anybody's been living under a rock in the shooting world for the last, 10 years or so, tell them how to find you and sign up for a class.
Yeah, modernsamuraiproject.com. If you just put in Modern Samurai Project anywhere, it'll pop up. My website, we can sign up for classes, Instagram, YouTube, all that stuff's out there. Would love to have you in a class. Would love to interact with you on the internets, and just the goal for everybody to get better. So,
well, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it.
Oh, always love talking to you, brother.
Oh no, likewise. It's been great having you on. Everybody out there, if you get a chance, train with Scott. He's a phenomenal instructor. The classes are fantastic, and he has a way of breaking down technique that is very accessible for pretty much everybody. So I can't recommend the classes more. Thanks for coming on. Hope everybody enjoyed the episode, and I'll talk to all you guys later.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of The Way is in Training. Please come back again as we explore how training makes us better at our craft and better in our everyday lives. See all of you soon.